didn't start with warships or cyber attacks. It started with a smile. In 2002, while Washington obsessed over spies and sanctions, Beijing executed one of the most brilliant soft power operations in modern history. They didn't hack computer systems, they didn't buy American companies, they didn't even need to threaten anyone. Instead, they sent a 7'6" athlete to Houston, calm, quiet, and smiling. His name was Yao Ming, and this gentle giant would give China more control over American culture than any spy, diplomat, or trade negotiator ever had. Over the next 2 decades, he helped turn the world's most socially conscious sports league into China's most obedient corporate partner. This is how Beijing weaponized basketball and how soft power conquered a superpower without firing a single shot. Chapter 1. The long game begins. While American intelligence agencies worried about military threats and cyber warfare, China's leadership was playing a different game entirely. They understood something Washington missed. In the 21st century, cultural influence would matter more than military might. China recognized their biggest challenge wasn't economic or military, it was their image problem, explained one former State Department official. Americans saw China as authoritarian and threatening. They needed to change that perception. The solution came from an unexpected source: basketball. Chinese officials identified the NBA as the perfect vehicle for cultural penetration. It was American enough to matter to US audiences, but universal enough that Chinese participation wouldn't seem forced. Basketball was the ideal Trojan horse, noted one China analyst. Enter Yao Ming, not just a basketball prodigy, but a carefully cultivated cultural weapon. Born to 2 former national team players, Yao's development was managed by the state from childhood. While American prospects played pickup games, Yao studied English with government tutors. While others focused on basketball skills, Yao learned media training and cultural sensitivity. Yao wasn't just being prepared to play basketball, explained one sports diplomat. He was being prepared to represent China to the world. Every aspect of his training was designed to make him appealing to Western audiences. This reflected China's sophisticated understanding of soft power. Rather than sending an obviously political figure, they would deploy someone who seemed completely apolitical. Rather than promoting Chinese ideology directly, they would let American audiences fall in love with a Chinese person. When the Houston Rockets selected Yao first overall in 2002, the negotiations revealed the true nature of the operation. This wasn't a player contract. It was a diplomatic agreement between the NBA and the Chinese state. The Chinese Basketball Association demanded unprecedented control, approval over Yao's commercial activities, guaranteed availability for national team duties, input on media appearances. The NBA, eager to access the Chinese market, agreed to terms they'd never accept from any other country. Yao's NBA debut was broadcast to 287 million viewers in China, dwarfing American viewership. Chinese officials arranged for schools and workplaces to show the game, turning it into a national celebration. That broadcast was China's declaration of cultural arrival, said one Chinese media analyst. They were announcing they could command American attention on American terms in America's most popular sport. The message to Washington was subtle but unmistakable. China could influence American culture without firing a shot. They just needed the right messenger. And Yao Ming was the perfect messenger. But the real message wasn't sent until years later, when China made the NBA choose between profit and principle. Chapter 2. Economic Entanglement by Design. As Yao established himself as an NBA star, Chinese strategists executed Phase 2, making American businesses dependent on Chinese consumers. the numbers were staggering. Before Yao, 30 million casual Chinese basketball fans. After Yao, over 300 million obsessed NBA followers, buying jerseys, watching games, treating American players like movie stars. This wasn't accidental. Chinese officials actively promoted NBA consumption through state media coverage, government-sponsored viewing parties, and educational programs using basketball to teach English. China was essentially training its population to become NBA consumers, noted one marketing analyst. It was soft power in reverse, using Chinese demand to influence American corporate behavior. The strategy worked perfectly. In 2008, the NBA created NBA China, a separate $2.3 billion entity with Chinese investors, including state-affiliated groups. For the first time, foreign government-connected entities held ownership stakes in NBA operations. That was the moment China gained formal influence over the NBA's business model, explained one sports finance expert. The real breakthrough came with digital streaming. In 2015, Chinese tech giant Tencent signed a $700 million deal for NBA rights. By 2019, that exploded to $1.5 billion, making it the NBA's largest international media partnership. Tencent was paying more for NBA content than ESPN pays for Monday Night Football. A Chinese company had become more financially important to the NBA than America's premier sports network. That's when the power dynamic fundamentally shifted, observed one media analyst. The NBA had voluntarily made itself dependent on Chinese approval for a significant portion of global revenue. This dependency extended beyond broadcast deals. Chinese companies became major sponsors. Chinese manufacturers produced NBA merchandise, sold worldwide. Chinese consumers drove global jersey sales for players who'd never visited China. By 2019, China represented approximately $500 million in annual NBA revenue, said one sports economist, with projections of $2 to $3 billion annually within a decade. The NBA's success in China dwarfed every other American cultural export. While Hollywood struggled with censorship and other sports failed to gain traction, basketball became China's most popular team sport. But Chinese strategists understood something the NBA missed. Economic interdependence creates leverage. The more valuable the Chinese market became, the more influence China could exert over league behavior. China was playing a much longer game, noted one geopolitical expert. They weren't just buying the American entertainment, they were buying the ability to influence American cultural institutions. The economic trap had been set. Now it was time to spring it. Chapter 3. The Enforcer Emerges. In 2017, Yao Ming accepted a position that would transform him from cultural ambassador to geopolitical enforcer, president of the Chinese Basketball Association. To most American observers, this seemed natural for a retired star. Few recognized that Yao now controlled the institutional relationship between Chinese basketball and the NBA, giving him unprecedented leverage over the league's most important international market. Yao's appointment was a masterstroke, explained one Asia policy expert. They placed their most credible basketball figure in a position where he could manage the NBA relationship while ensuring it served Chinese state interest. This new reality became devastatingly clear on October 4th, 2019, when Houston Rockets GM Daryl Morey tweeted support for Hong Kong protesters, fight for freedom, stand with Hong Kong. The response was immediate and coordinated, with Yao at its center. As CBA president, Yao issued a statement that perfectly embodied China's sophisticated approach to economic coercion. We oppose Morey's comments, which have hurt the feelings of Chinese fans. We hope the Rockets will be aware of the harm this incident has caused. The statement was masterfully crafted, expressing emotional injury rather than political disagreement, appealing to cultural sensitivity rather than making explicit ideological demands. The consequences were swift. Chinese state broadcaster CCTV suspended all NBA games. Tencent pulled NBA content from platforms. Chinese sponsors canceled millions in deals. The Houston Rockets were specifically blacklisted. The financial impact, $400 million in lost revenue. But the most brilliant aspect was what Yao didn't do. He never specified what the NBA needed to do to restore the relationship. By maintaining strategic ambiguity, Yao created a chilling effect far more powerful than explicit demands, explained one crisis expert. The NBA began self-censoring on all China-related issues. This uncertainty encouraged overcompliance. Players stopped commenting on Chinese human rights. Coaches deflected political questions. Even LeBron James criticized Mori for being misinformed about Hong Kong. Yao had achieved something remarkable, observed one media analyst. He'd turned America's most socially conscious sports league into willing participants in Chinese censorship. The gentle giant had become Beijing's most effective enforcer of political compliance among American corporations. Chapter 4: The New Rules of Engagement. Today, Yao Ming represents the new face of Chinese power projection, not with tanks, not with threats, but with charm, silence, and a billion-dollar market behind him. As president of the Chinese Basketball Association, Yao controls everything from NBA exhibition games and youth camps to commercial partnerships and media rights. In essence, he's the league's unofficial commissioner for China. But unlike Adam Silver, Yao answers to the Chinese state. His influence isn't loud, it's subtle, and that's exactly what makes it so effective. He still shows up at NBA events, cracks jokes, smiles warmly. He talks about his playing days, not politics. And yet, behind the scenes, every NBA deal in China flows through him. Every partnership, every broadcast, every cross-border event. Yao's genius is that he never appears threatening. One diplomat noted, he enforces Beijing's red lines with a handshake and a smile. This duality, gentle public image, ruthless backstage leverage, has forced the NBA into a split personality. In the US, it champions free speech. But when it comes to China, silence on everything from Hong Kong to Uyghur labor camps. The league that moved an all-star game over a bathroom bill won't touch Xinjiang with a 10-foot pole. And this isn't just about basketball. China's broader strategy is clear. Don't buy American companies, make them dependent on Chinese consumers. Then use that dependency to shape what they say, do, and believe. Yao Ming became the proof of concept. And every industry, from tech to Hollywood, is now learning the playbook. Before we dive into the next part, here's something that could seriously level up the way you invest. If you're looking for professional-grade insight, not social media hype, you need to check out Seeking Alpha. Their Alpha Pick service gives you 2 hand-picked stocks every month, with a proven history of strongly outperforming the market. These aren't random tips. They're backed by data-driven analysis and real performance. Want proof? Click the link in the description to see the track record for yourself. While you're there, you can also unlock a free trial and special discount on Seeking Alpha Premium, giving you full access to expert articles, quant ratings, and serious investor tools. Both offers are exclusive to this channel and available for a limited time. Click the link now to get started, and let's get back to the story. Chapter 5: The Ultimate Checkmate. This wasn't a hostile takeover, it was a willing handover. The NBA didn't lose control of its values. It traded them for revenue, access, and growth. Executives didn't just compromise, they internalized the censorship. They made it company policy to avoid offending Beijing. And that's what makes this such a masterstroke. China didn't have to threaten anyone. The NBA censored itself. This is how power works in the 21st century. Not with boots on the ground, but with contracts, markets, and the unspoken fear of losing access. Yao Ming wasn't a spy. He didn't need to be. He was the smiling face of an authoritarian regime's most elegant victory, one that rewrote the rules of global influence using nothing but soft power, market leverage, and silence. The Art of War, Basketball Edition. And China won, without firing a shot. The next time you see a slam dunk or a sneaker deal, remember, this isn't just a game anymore, it's a battlefield. And if you want to understand just how deep this influence goes, check out our companion video, How China Silenced the NBA Without Firing a Single Shot. The link is in the pinned comment. We're a new channel telling stories they don't want in the headlines, stories about global power, economic warfare, and silent empires. If this hit you, subscribe. Help us keep making more. And if you're into the NBA side of the story, the agents, the billionaires, the backroom power plays, check out our sister channel, The Max Deal, where we break down the business of basketball. Two worlds, one mission to reveal who's really pulling the strings. This is John from both channels. Thanks for watching.